Welcome to another episode of the Overcome University podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is my friend, Jennifer Embry. She is an entrepreneur, she's a philanthropist, and the recent recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Presidential Award. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike, our hometown hero.
You are, being someone from Miami, and I'm from Miami, I was looking at like your upbringing and all the things that you've been through. And I was like, wow, to know somebody that been through some of the things that you've been through and now willing to share your story of your success. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was raised in the 80s and 90s in Miami, and you were there. It was, it was a challenging time being a person of color, and we lived in an area called Brown Sub Projects for a while.
Okay.
You're familiar? Yeah, we lived in Brown Sub for a while, and um, like in New York, they said if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But if you made it out of Brown Sub, God bless you. So, um, so coming from that area and just evolving and growing as we all do naturally, organically, but also in my mindset and in my pursuit of success. Um, it's just once you do that at a certain age, you realize that you're limitless. You do, so having that strong, challenging background makes any new challenge cake.
I was going to ask you this, growing up in Miami, like I grew up in Overtown, right? Not too far from where you just mentioned. And you get a certain type of perspective and a mindset seeing some of the things that you grew up around. And it takes a certain level of ambition to say, I want to change my environment. Can you talk about where that sparked for you?
Um, I was born practical, which is odd because I'm also a creative.
Hmm.
But the practical part of it was me as a child being in, and as they say, what happens to you as a child is not your fault, but
Right.
how you move forward and how you heal is your responsibility. So as a child, when things around me were happening, I looked at it as these are the adults around me. This is a result of choices that they made
Mm.
based on their opportunities or the options that were placed in front of them. And so as a child, I just knew that I would have different options and make different choices. And ultimately, that's what I ended up doing. Um, anyone who thinks different is definitely different. But, um, my mom very much accepted that I had a very different mindset from a lot of people around me.
So being in that environment and you're thinking a whole lot different and you're thinking for like brighter and bigger things, can you talk to me a little bit about who were some of the people that were guiding you or molding you for you to even to think on that that level of high frequency?
That's a good question. Um, I would say my mom had bouts of um, contagious positivity.
Hmm.
Um, the execution of some of the things would be different,
Hmm.
it wasn't as structured. So my mind, even as a child, would structure that positivity or that goal. Like it was infectious. So I'm super positive about it.
Hmm.
And then everything that I wanted to do, I applied that same burst of energy and positivity, but I structured it because I had to look at what I wanted it to be. And then I had to realize you have to plan. It's not just going to happen. And I think making those connections from a young age, like,
Uh-huh.
okay, and we could break it down as simply as, do I want to wake up like Eeyore or do I want to wake up like Tigger? Because
Hmm.
Tigger gets stuff done. So, just picking as a child and seeing as a child what was successful and what wasn't. Just having that practicality to see what an implementation, like how to start something, how to execute it. And these are like teaching it like a scientific experiment almost.
Right.
the successful route. This is, just dreaming.
I want to touch on something that I think is important based off your upbringing, where you're from, because typically you went against the odds, you went against the statistics in regards to the community that you grew up in. A lot of people usually don't make it out. Can you talk to me a little bit about your environment when it comes to like your elementary school, your middle school, and high school? What were some of the challenges that you may have faced, and what were some of the things that you had to fight through to get through, and how did you do that?
Interesting. So, in elementary, I was tested for gifted in probably the second grade. And there was an older middle-aged white guy that came and took me from my class. So
Mhm.
you already know the antennas are up. Stranger danger. This is a white guy in a hood that looks like a remix of Albert Einstein, had the patches on the elbow and everything, you know. And he took me up into this room in my elementary school that I had never been to. And he
Mhm.
sat down, and in my mind, we were playing. He had a series of graphs and charts and puzzles and things like that. And nobody told my mom, but later on, I realized that they were testing me for being gifted.
Mm.
Of course, I want to know, well, what does that mean? Right. So then I got put in a special class. And from there, I knew that if I use my mind differently,
Mhm.
then I will get different results. So I knew I had a practical problem solving mind capabilities. But in elementary, being in that environment, some incredible things happened. Um, I can remember there was a period of time where there were two guys driving around trying to pick up kids, offering candy and cookies. And I remember playing on the side of the projects with my friend and being approached, you know, from the sidewalk. We were on the swings on the
Mhm.
side, and they approached us. And I can remember my friend, me not knowing, watching the news, but still knowing stranger danger. But my friend, we were very young, she was adamant. She grabbed my hand immediately and she was like, no. They kept telling us to come to the car. She's like, no. And if you take another step, I'm going to scream. And I just remembered how strong she was in knowing she knew something I didn't know.
Mhm.
And we ended up just running into the middle of the projects to kind of get away from them. And I casually mentioned it to my mom at dinner. And, next thing I know, the police are at the house doing an interview. And I realized, like, my life was definitely in danger for sure.
Definitely.
Another time, SWAT invaded the projects and just kind of ran right over us, literally, foot in the back. And just a series of things that happened in that area where I saw people were treated a lot differently. And I didn't want to be treated that way. I wanted to demand respect. I felt we all needed, respect. We all deserved respect. But systemically, it was shown that, people, that was an easy area to do bad things. And I didn't want that for myself. I definitely didn't want that for my kids. In middle school and even in elementary, my dad passed. In middle school, my stepfather passed. And I experienced grief very young,
Mhm.
but I also learned that I was still alive. Like whatever obstacle we had when I was younger, we still lived. We still breathe. Whatever bad thing happened, there was still breath in us, there was still life in us, and we still had the opportunity to change our outcome every single time. Um, so growing up, the inconsistency of my childhood allowed me to be very adaptive, and also to notice when people were working smarter, not harder. And so, I adapted that for the rest of my life. So um, there were definitely inner city challenges.
Mhm.
And then as I got older, there were challenges with um, not being around people who were very supportive. So I learned at a young age to don't believe anything that someone is unhappy says to you about you. because it's coming from the wrong place. It's not coming from a happy place, you
Mhm.
know? Now, if you know there's someone who's super happy and they tell you something about you, believe it. But if there's someone who's unhappy and they're telling you things about you, do not believe it because it's not coming from a good place. So even as a child, if an adult told me I couldn't do something or this wasn't it, or I never believed them. I respected them, but I didn't believe them. And so that carried with me as well.
Yeah, that lends to the old adage of hurt people, and you got to be smart enough and wise enough to decipher through some of those types of things whenever your approach or is coming your way. Can you talk a little bit about higher education? Because now you've discovered your giftedness. You discovered some things through the trials that you're dealing with like your passing off your dad and some of the situations in your environment. I'm asking you that because against the stigma and things like that, not everyone gets to go to college. Not everyone even has aspirations of higher education. Can you talk a little bit about you going off to college, you saying, "Hey, I want to do some things better and greater for myself," because now you're a super entrepreneur, philanthropist, and things like that. But I know that there was something that helped spark that for you. Can you talk a little bit about the higher education piece for you?
Um, Hustle. I was hustling. What happened in high school was I was enrolled in a magnet program for law, and I can remember, you know, I'm a judgment free type of person. I just told you where I come from. So I have a mixture of friends that are a little rough around the edges. And then I have friends that are, very intellectual and
Mhm.
things like that. So in high school, something happened hanging around someone who that changed my life. We were in this dual enrollment situation. And sometimes we went to the University of Miami for some of our courses, some of our classes. This was a special day because I remember our instructor, because he wasn't a teacher, he was an instructor or a professor who was in place at our inner city high school, but was part of this magnet program.
Mhm.
So he had taken us to UM, and I think this was a day they were up for funding or something like that, a very important day. Well, I remember going to the bathroom with one of my friends, and my friend, she kind of had a potty mouth. She was from where she was, and she was a little loud in the bathroom. And, you know, me and another, it was three of us. So, me and my other friend, we were just, going through the motions, reapplying our lip gloss, listening to her rant about something. And when we opened the door, our instructor was standing there, and he was like, everybody could hear everything in the bathroom.
Oh.
And he's like, I know who it was and
Mm.
who was talking. He said, but because you two chose to hang out with her,
Hmm.
I'm removing you all from this program.
Wow.
So my free ride to college was snatched away
Mm.
just because I went to the bathroom with my friend. Later
Association
on,
guilty.
huh?
Your association made you guilty.
My
Wow.
associate, I was guilty 100% by association. Later on, um, randomly, my instructor ended up being best friends with my aunt's boyfriend, and he was at Thanksgiving, and he called me outside, and he had tears in his eyes, and he was like, I apologize. He's like, it was so hard for me to do that. He's like, I couldn't sleep that night because I kept saying, like, did I do the right thing? He said, but I had to, you know, make a point. I really had to make an example out of you all because I wanted the rest of these kids that come from the inner city to know to carry themselves in a certain way so
Mm.
that they don't miss out on opportunities. By the time he told me that, like, I was so over it, it wasn't even funny
Mhm.
because right after that, I won an art contest and got accepted to Parsons Paris for um, a scholarship. I would start junior college in the summer and then move on into the semester. I brought it to my mom, and my mom was like, "What do you think?" My mom said, "What do you think my mom said?" She's like, no, you don't speak French. No, you're a child. You're 16. You're not going. Because I had all my credits for high school. She's like,
Uh,
you're not going to you're not living in another country at 16. She's a
mm,
Black mom. She's like, no, it's not
yeah.
happening, you know? So um my mother had 5 kids. I knew I didn't have a college fund. By then we were living in Miami Lakes, and I was actually busing to my inner city school because of that magnet program that I had gotten kicked out of. So then that was my second free college ride done. Um, my mom ended up getting really sick while my stepdad was in school for architecture.
Mhm.
So she ended up getting really sick. And, I knew that I wouldn't be able to go away to college and that I would have to pay for college. So I ended up enrolling in a local college and paying for college and helping out with the household because I had to, but it was either sink or swim. But I kept I kept trying, Mike. Kept trying to every everything I do. Oh, it's like art contest where I can go to school for free. Boom, won the contest. Still no, So, but um, I knew after the first no, right? After
Mhm.
that experience, I got another opportunity, right? I could have just gave up on college, like, oh, free ride's gone. Might as well figure out something to do. But then I kept going, and then I kept going, and then I kept going. And then I realized if I am responsible for me, if I create my own opportunity, I know I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. And that's how I apply every single thing in my life, every challenge. If I'm responsible for it and I know I can do it, I'm going to do it, period.
I love your determination and your perseverance and to carry so much weight on your shoulder. And that's a lot of responsibility, you know. Can you talk a little bit about where does that come from? You know, once you discovered that I need to do some of these things on my own and I need to be responsible for these things. Is there a certain thing or a certain person? Because like you've gone through these things, right? And I just think of that's for myself. Sometimes I'm in the motion, but I don't really see it or really capture it. Looking back at it, was there a certain person or a certain mentor or a coach that kept pushing you along just for you to like keep sticking to what you're doing?
No, no, there wasn't, Michael. And when I read, I love autobiographies and
Mhm,
biographies. And when I read these stories and I'm reading about, Will Smith and just finished Shonda Rhimes and,
mhm,
Oprah, I'm reading these books and they tell this story. It's like all of them had like a guardian angel
mhm,
almost that was in their community or in their lives
uh-huh.
that was there. And that whenever they fell back, this little person would just come and push them forward. And I'm reading it like, must be nice, must be, I get it. I get why you the billions,
Uh-huh.
but not everybody has that. I want to be transparent with that. Everybody doesn't have that. And it sometimes have to be you. It has to come from you. I remember saying something to my friend, uh, but it came from a good place. And what I said was, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. I meant that in a way of, even if you had this guardian angel or this mentor or this coach that was on you and pushing you, ultimately it is still up to you on whether or not you accept that feedback and take that advice and actually use it. So no one's coming to save. You have to want to save yourself. You have to save yourself. Even with your angels, even with supplement, even if you're a trust fund baby, you have to want to do things and get things done. You have to want to be healthy. You have to want to be successful. It starts with you. Nobody's going to put that in you. You have to want it. So I'm, where's the camera? I did not have anybody to push me and encourage me to be successful. And I'm okay with that, you know? So, yeah.
If you could expound on nobody's coming to save you to our listeners, a lot of times I ask you that because a lot of times some people are now in the space of looking towards coaches and mentors to help them pull them along to get them to the destination of where they want to be at. So for that listener that's listening and they're facing adversity and they're stuck and they're struggling, right? When you think of the concept of no one is coming to save you, what are some things that they could start doing in their life to get to their actual goals that they're actually trying to strive for?
That's a good question. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to expound on that because it comes across as kind of negative and pessimistic. But if I'm being practical, what I'm saying is in your darkest hour, you can have the brightest light shining next to you. But if you don't want to turn that light on and receive what is being put out, you're going to stay in the darkness. So I did not have a mentor and didn't even understand the concept of a mentor. I didn't have a mentor until I was in my 30s. And once I received a mentor, I felt like I had been drinking um, Kool Aid all my life, and I finally had fresh juice. It's a mind altering, full body experience. You want to collaborate, you want to be with people who are more elevated than you want to be surrounded by people that are smarter than you. And, but ultimately, they cannot change you. I don't believe that people change. I believe that people grow. And that comes from, me being little, watching me and my brothers grow.
Mhm.
And when we would go and see family, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you've changed, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, just grew. I just kind of grew. And you have to have a growth mindset. Your growth mindset, people with growth mindset tend to be more happier. And it's not something you're born with. You can change your mindset, but no one is going to change it for you. Only you can make you happy. You know you better than anybody else. If you know you better than anybody else and you're not happy, no one from the outside of you is going to come and know you well enough to make you happy. You have to be open to being happy. It's simply a choice. I can be sad and then pop open some cookies and I am happy. I have decided I'm going to make myself happy. Give me them cookies. Where's Netflix? I am going to make myself happy. It has to be a decision. You have to decide. This coach, this mentor can be your guardian angel, but you have to decide that's what you want. So that's what I mean when I say no one is coming to save you. Even if on a spiritual level, God has so much in store for everyone. But if you're not tapped in, nobody's coming to save you.
Absolutely.
So
So Jennifer, I had the opportunity to come to Bahamas and learn a bit more about you when she invited me to come and speak. I had the opportunity to come to your golf tournament and learn about the Adora Group, learn about the Enrichment Mint, and you have a lot going on. You've done a lot with a lot of different brands. You do a lot of philanthropic work now. Can you talk a little bit about how did you get into entrepreneurship? Can you talk about some of the things that you've accomplished? Because, like I said, presidential lifetime presidential achievement award. Tell us a little bit about how did you get into entrepreneurship?
when I got into entrepreneurship, I'm gonna go back to it's the Miami hustle. I'm in college, paying for college, took out loans, have no idea how, why. I just was like, how do I get into here? I didn't
Mhm.
get financial aid because again, my mom was sick and you need taxes and things like that. So I had to figure it out. I had to hustle. And when I was in college, I started working for this Microsoft Training Institute. And it was kind of slow and it was kind of commission based as well. What ended up happening was I started doing brand ambassading. I used to be a
Mhm.
brand ambassador, and it paid very well. I remember my first tour was with Kellogg's, going to the different Publixes in South Florida, promoting Special K with the strawberries. And we would go throughout Florida, and I'm in college, and at night I'm studying, and then during the day I'm at work, and on the weekends I'm doing this Special K. I was getting paid more on the weekends doing my independent contracting work than I
Awesome.
was my 9 to 5. And then would go to school at night from 6 to 10, and try and make some stuff up on the weekends. But again, the practical part of me was like, Jen, let's work smarter, not harder. All
Mhm.
right. Get rid of this Microsoft thing, go hard on brand ambassading, because this independent contracting, because this is where the money at. Of course, you don't have insurance or anything like that, but I'm young and naive. I don't care. I just want the money. And sure enough, I ended up working with incredible brands. By the time I was finally 21, I can actively represent liquor brands. So at 21, I was hired with Bacardi, who is based out of Miami, to go on this national tour and throw this big party. The contract with them, when I saw how much I was getting paid at the age of 21, after with a 2-year degree, I knew I didn't want to play this game anymore.
Mm.
I don't want to go back and be like, there are people in my family who are, most of my family on both sides are scholars. They work in higher ed, they're professors, they're directors. They're just smart, resilient, good people. I needed money, and I needed money. So I was like, okay, this is cool. It allows me to go and see the world. It takes me out of my environment, number one. And number two, it pays very, very well.
Mhm.
And so from there, and as an independent contractor, you're an entrepreneur, but you're your business and you're your brand. So traveled the U.S. Um, I met my husband on tour, which is awkward because the theme of the tour that year was Vegas, and one of the models got sick, and I was in like a showgirl costume. I had the feather plume and some fishnets and a corset, and I get approached, and I'm like, please, please, leave me alone. But he was resilient. He was consistent, and we're married. So we got married.
Oh my God.
um Obviously it was long distance for a little bit because you know I was driving across the country in a red glitter limo, followed by a box truck and a tour bus. But we got married when I was 22. I had my son when I was 23. I got hired again as a market manager, independent contractor, and I wasn't happy with the staffing and production agency
Mhm.
that was in the town I was at that time. So, you know, professionally, I experienced some racism. I was very young, but I was over a market, so that's not usual. I was also in Knoxville, Tennessee. Okay, and I was over a whiskey and bourbon portfolio.
Wow.
So not only am I the only woman, I am the youngest person in the room who happens to be Black. And oftentimes I was in charge. And so you have to kind of adapt to that. But I started my entrepreneurship because I wasn't satisfied with the treatment that I was getting from the staffing agency and the production company. And I was like, well, I could do this. Knoxville has UT. It's some pretty models, some ladies who might want to work with somebody who's a little more cool. And that's what I did. So I started my company when I was 23. And again, all of these paid very well. It was a no brainer to me. This is what I wanted to do.
Wow. Let's unpack some things there. I had some laughs, but I did want to touch on something kind of serious here because as you mentioned, experiencing some things that deals with like either racism or some things that's tied to like biases or discrimination and things like that. In this day and age, when diversity, equity, inclusion is one of the most important topics that everyone is talking about, can you shed some light on maybe some of the things that did take place? And I understand that you got out of that industry because of what you was going through, but can you talk a little bit about what was going on? And then for our listeners that's listening, what are some things that you would like to see in the business space now or within the corporate space now that could help with eliminating or alleviating some of these things or bringing a light to some of these things that could help people that's within the space?
Okay. So I don't think I had the naivete going into my situations. Like when
Hmm.
you walk in the room and you're the only, you're very aware that you're the only. And I think having realistic expectations about your goals, and who you're going to be around. Corporate America, especially at an executive level, is predominantly white. So when you go in that, you have to understand that it is not as diverse as you want it to be.
Hmm.
So when you go in there with the mindset that I should be treated fairly, crazy is going to happen to me because this is, I've gotten these degrees or I've worked this hard and I deserve this. You're right. But you also need to have the expectation and be prepared that someone is going to try you.
Mm.
And that's not negative, that's just being prepared.
Right.
So one of the things that happened on tour was the main person in charge would often try to solicit me for sex. That was a no-go for me. I'm like,
Mhm.
absolutely not. It's not happening. And so because of that, I was kind of picked on. But I took that, it was empowering to me because it was like, if it's me or you who's going to break down first, it's definitely not going to be me.
Mhm.
So I can show you better than I can tell you. But it was a very, it was a lot of tension, and it wasn't a healthy environment. So when that was over, I moved on to just not traveling, not going on tour, just being my own boss, being by myself, having my own territory. So some people have the wherewithal to stay in situations like that. I knew I didn't. I reported it at the end of the tour, saw the response from the corporate execs, didn't see what I needed to see, and made the decision, as hard as it was, to move on and take care of myself, protect my physical body as well as my mental health. But I still wanted to stay in that sector, which is predominantly middle aged white men.
Mhm.
And I knew I had to be equipped and prepared to walk into these situations with confidence and knowledge to, address whatever happened. I made sure to address it in real time. If someone was passive aggressive, I would call attention to it and say, "Well, what did you mean by that?" And they would have to nervously repeat it or say it was a joke. And I'm like, well, what part of it was supposed to be funny? Just continue, just ask questions to bring them their awareness. Like, why are you saying that? That was, and then I would do things like, something like a parent would do. I'd be like, I'm really disappointed in you, dude. I expected more from you, buddy. And just not talk to them ever again. So the rest of our interactions was them buying coffee and sending flowers and trying to balance this known wrong, because I've made them aware in a public setting, you've done something wrong. How do you fix it? Why did you do it? Where did that come from? So just addressing things in a real time, um, confronting things without aggression head on, asking questions, as odd as that may seem. Oh, you speak very well. Well, I was just about to say that about you. Where are you from? Your English is amazing. I'm from Knoxville. Oh, what, really? You talk so well. I would have never known. Well, what is that supposed to mean? I'm like, well, what did you mean by me speaking well? What does that mean? Just doing stuff like that because, why not? Right. But also, while it's happening, sometimes it's almost like a physical slap in the face. Um, it's so um, macabre almost. It's just not right. So just breathing through it and addressing it. And every time someone would say something like that or behave that way, I immediately felt like I'm a much better person than you. Now you've revealed how much of a better person I am than you.
Right.
So addressing them as you kind of would a child and bringing them up to the level you are at that time. To have that confidence, I researched our history relentlessly from all the way from Africa, mathematics, medicine, understanding our history beyond our American history allowed me to enter every room of every religion with the utmost confidence. So a knowledge of self allowed me to be self-assured and to confront whenever something or any biases was pointed towards my way. Just having that knowledge of myself, a knowledge of that bias, and bringing attention to where it came from. Why did you say that? Why? Well, what made you say, or and just telling them I would expect from a person in your position, I just expected a lot more. So just kind of doing things like that helped me. It really maintained a level of respect. People started to kind of sit up a little straighter and carry themselves in a certain way, but it took some time.
I love the attitude of self-respect, and I love the attitude of not brushing things off. Oftentimes, as you see in society, things come up 5 years later, 10 years later, and they bring up stories. But you addressing things right there on the spot says a whole lot about you as well. I want to touch on something that you mentioned. You became a business leader at a very young age in a very diverse group, right? So, can you talk a little bit about your leadership skills, some of the things that you learned how to decipher at a very young age, and just speak towards that now as a business owner and as a CEO?
Thank you for that question. Again, a lot of the things that I did at a very young age was just sheer audacity
Hmm.
because I didn't know I couldn't do it. But one of the things that happened, my first group of staff, I had a production team to help me set up for events, and then I had about 10 models to do events, parties, and things like that. And when I went to hire these models, um, I let them know very early on, you're an independent worker. That means that you run your own business. This is your business. If you don't run it correctly, you will not get paid. This is your lane. I completely trust you and give you full autonomy to complete the task that you are given.
Hmm.
I am not going to micromanage you. If you need someone to tell you what to do every step of the way, this isn't the position for you. This position is me trusting that you have the talent and the wherewithal to get this done. And when you do, you grow. You get paid more. You're going to get paid on time. If there's an emergency, I'll even, forward you your check. But this is a relationship to where I'm just paying you to do your job, but I'm allowing you to own your lane. That's your lane. I can't tell you how to do or what to do. This is exactly what the position and description is, and it's up to you to execute it to the best of your ability. Of course, there's reward if you go above and beyond. If you do exactly what you're supposed to do, you're going to get paid exactly what we were contracted to pay you. But just giving them their own power and letting them know this org does not work without you. But you're in charge of your org. So you got to own it like a business. Many of my staff, I'm very happy to say, what has gone on to be very successful, and most of them entrepreneurs. And it started from me knowing this isn't a corporate environment. I'm super young, you're super young. We're going to do this, or I'm just going to hire somebody else to do it. and just giving them the respect and the autonomy to do what they signed up to do alleviates a lot of pressure, but also they had a very sense of pride in their work that I've seen with my teams that I haven't seen in others. So that's how, I led when I was young and how I lead to this day.
I think you have a very intuitive mindset when it comes to opportunities, because you saw a problem and you said, I'm going to step out and become an entrepreneur. Can you give some advice to our listeners that's listening and they're thinking of stepping into entrepreneurship, they're thinking of starting their own business? Can you give some advice of like some of the things that they need to be aware of, some things they need to start considering? Because you've already been there, you've done that, right? So can you give them some advice?
First, I would say if you can afford a mentor, get a mentor. Um, the second thing I would say is don't ask anybody else for permission. Sometimes when we want to do something and we feel it in our gut that it's a really good idea, we will tell it to the people around us in hopes that they, or volley it to them, like throw it to them in hopes that they'll throw it back with this big ball of positivity. And sometimes it's not going to happen. Um, don't ask for permission and from people who's never done it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask for opinions of people who've never done it before. Find someone who's done it or someone similar, and respect them enough to value them and their time and get what you need from them while also maintaining your integrity and what you want to do for your business. But I wouldn't ask for permission. I wouldn't ask for friends and family what they think. I think ultimately you need to start with your thought, what that business is, what you want it to be, and then you need to either research those steps on doing it or get a mentor because it'll be working smarter, not harder. So yeah.
You know, as a business owner, I struggled when I first started, and something that really stuck out for me was I was always like in it, and I had to figure out how to get out of the business to work and supervise over the business. And I learned really, really fast how to delegate, allocate, right? Can you talk a little bit about the CEO mindset that you discovered for yourself and how you choose to apply that within your business for you to be at the level of success that you're at now today?
Well, what I'm going to say is the same things that you said, because my first bout, I had four major clients and I tried delegating, but I don't know if this is a common thing when you start a business. You want to put on all of your friends and family as well. Like, hey, I need a manager. I'm paying $60,000. Back then that's a whole lot. You know, I would rather this either stay in my household or go to somebody in my family. And it works for some, but not everybody.
Right.
I would say to look for the same things in your staff in your friends or family, if you're looking to hire help, the same accountability and look for the same professional skills that you would a stranger. Um, just, always have contracts in place for sure. But in addition to delegating your task as an entrepreneur now, I think it's incredibly important to respect technology and lean on technology and systems because they can make this experience so much easier, so much better. Um, we have an app for the staff that's in the field right now doing in-store promotions. There's an app where they check in the morning, they get in their car, they check in, and it maps them. There's a map, so we pay for the gas and mileage. That's already in that system. They
Mhm.
arrive. The map shows them arrive at that place. If they need to take any pictures, it's all done in the app. Any recaps, inventory, anything, all done in the app. And then at the end of the day, they clock out. That's their payroll. That's their payroll. That's data analysis. That's gas and mileage. That's content, and it's all from an app. Otherwise I would have had to pay a supervisor had to pay an additional a bookkeeper, a weekly bookkeeper. But this is all done now from an app. So the benefit that today's entrepreneur has are all of the software, all of the technology to make their life a lot easier. I'm a big advocate of technology and AI, even. It does make your life easier. Adapt it, don't be afraid of it. And if you are, hire a company or an agency that's not afraid of it, that can make it user friendly or digestible for you to have control and feel comfortable. But definitely give it a try.
Absolutely. We use something similar with our franchise. It was called Client Tether, to what you were saying, what you have with your employees now. You mentioned earlier that you met a guy on tour, and you guys kicked it off, and y'all like now are living happily ever after. Can you talk about the balance in regards to maintaining a household and running a business? Because you're also a mom and you're a wife as well too.
Oh, well, my husband is my best friend. And but we have completely different thoughts and mindset. He has gone on to be a corporate executive, and he is very corporate. And I am, as you noted, all over, the place. Um, what I love about my husband is that when we got married, instead of my mind and the things that I wanted to do being overwhelming, it was almost humorous to him. He was like, oh, okay, you're gonna do that? Okay. Like, if you say so, which was different from, girl, you can't do that. You about to do this in the middle of this city, and you're on this and that, and you're the only Black person, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't that. He had such neutralness that I felt freedom to
Mhm.
not have any responsibility or perception of who my partner thinks I should be, or who my partner, or what my partner thought I should be. So having that independence in our relationship was very helpful. But as the journey continued, by the time we started having kids, I'm a boss, right?
All
So
right.
I want to do everything, and I was doing everything, and my family had gotten accustomed to me doing everything, and my husband had gotten accustomed to me doing everything. And then one day, something was off, and he had the nerve to point out that I didn't do everything. And so I had to sit down and self-reflect. Like, I've created this expectation that I'm going to do everything. Is that fair to me? But ultimately, is it fair to him? Is it fair to my children watching this? Should I be the person who is, working as well, cooking, cleaning, school, this and that? I was blessed to work from home most of the time, but should I be the one doing all of this? And so I sat and I thought about it, and I wasn't angry with anyone. I was more so acknowledging that I created, the outcome that I had had. I'd done that. I was the one who never asked for help.
Mhm.
So then when I did ask for help, and, he's like, what? What do you mean help with this and that? I was like, let's just do something. So I took a whiteboard, I drew a line down the middle, and I said, let's balance this out. So I said, I'm going to write what I do from when I wake up in the morning to when I go to sleep.
Mhm.
And so I wrote, wake up, go wake the kids up, make breakfast, pack their lunches, get them dressed for school, take them to school, you know, come back home, work, do the laundry, do some dishes, work, you know, go pick the kids up from school, take them to whatever aftercare, after school, recreational, whatever, go to the grocery store, cook, clean the kitchen, do the dishes, you know, bathe the kids, iron their clothes for school tomorrow. Just, I did everything. It was a really petty experiment, but I just wanted to just this, da 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 da, make my to-do list in my office for tomorrow, blah, 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 da da da, do my, this, go to bed. And I Gave him the dry erase. I'm like, your turn. He's like, wake up, go to work, come home, go to sleep.
He's gonna kill you when he sees this.
This is a true story. I only speak facts. So he stood back. And I was like, we're standing, but he can't stand when I do this. But I'm like, let's look at this. And he's looking at me. He's like, I get it, Jen. I get it. So then he just took the marker and started drawing lines into his lane, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, that marker is pretty smooth. It's easy to do this, but this is going, let's balance this out.
Mm.
Michael, since that day, Sean, my husband, has done everything except breastfeed my kids. He can do anything I can do. Anything. He's working on doing my daughter's hair. I'm not gonna give him that. He tries, but he can do anything that I can do. He
That's
could
awesome.
100% take care of this household. But I had to communicate that in a
Right.
healthy way to where we maintained a sense of balance. So it's not a fun conversation for people to have. And I just made a visual because I didn't want to argue about it. But he respected it. And we, since then, we've had a disgustingly healthy balance. It's freed up more time for us to have time to with each other and even time with the family. And now that the kids are older, we did that same thing. This is what we do. Here's the marker. Write what you do,
Mhm.
And so we're pretty balanced now because of that. So thanks for that question because it was something that you have to you don't know to do it unless it comes a time where you have to do it. So you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I love the intentionality around that when it comes to communicating with your partner. There's another thing that I wanted to ask you to talk about, and it's surround boundaries professionally and personally, because sometimes there's a struggle for entrepreneurs in that space. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Um, that was one of my biggest struggles. I don't know if you can relate to it, Michael.
Yeah.
Like if you do your business out of your home kind of becomes your business.
Hmm.
And in the early days, I would work during the day on proposals, PR, a lot of legal stuff, especially when it was surrounding liquor, permits, things like that, scheduling, payroll, all of that. And then at night, we would actually have events from like 8 to 4 a.m. in the morning because we're talking Miami, Fort Lauderdale here. And a lot of the boundaries weren't there. Like my house was 24 hours entrepreneur. Like I took calls all type of day, all through the day. I would stop doing something and then just go and start working. I would stay up all night doing work and things like that. And it was a grave imbalance and a grave injustice to my own peace of mind. And it's a disrespect to the company, right? So
Hmm.
what I started to do was really adapt time management and really create those structured boundaries. So I would create a calendar where I would say from this time to this time, I'm looking at this. From this time to this time, I'm looking at that. But if you know me, once 5 or 6 o'clock hits, I do not touch I have two phones. I'm not touching my work phone.
Hmm.
It's not happening. Even if I think of something, I'll write an email and don't send it until have it on a delayed send until the next morning. But just carving out your personal time and respecting it and sticking to it as if you say to yourself, I don't get paid to think about this in the shower. So at this time, I'm cutting it off and I'm moving on. But a big help with that was time management and structuring how I wanted my days and my weekends to look. So just going into it with intentionality and setting those boundaries and sticking to it, it makes for a healthy heart and a healthy mindset and a work-life balance.
I love it. I love it. one of my mentors always talked to me about guarding your time and the power of no. And that lends towards what you're just saying, but it's so valuable based off what you just said too, because I never thought about it in regards to like valuing your time in regards to off the clock, so to speak, and saying, so now I'm working for free, or what is this adding up to, and things like that. So that's interesting that you brought that up. I want to talk about some of the adversities that business owners face when it comes to challenges and applying some of like the mitigating things to our risk management. Can you talk about like some examples that maybe you have faced as a business owners that you could share with our listeners that are current business owners of how you deal with challenges when it comes to mitigating anything that comes up?
I think a good thing to do is, even though we're entrepreneurs, I think it's very important to self-educate and go to conferences, but also to sit in PR workshops, sit in HR workshops. Um, One of the main things that has helped me as a founder and as a CEO is me knowing or seeing whatever I've assigned someone else to do. So understanding what it is that my frontline employees go through every single day. Like what does their day look like? So if you have to shadow them, or even if they're in the stores promoting something, have you stood there with them all day to see what they go through? And in that way, when they bring up a challenge, you respect their challenges in the field because you've seen what they go through. And
Mm,
then on the back end, in addition to, when someone brings you a problem, respect the problem. In order to problem solve that, the first thing I always say is, okay, well, what was your thoughts on that? How do you want to correct this? Because everyone's different. Every problem is different, and we don't know everything, you know? Maybe they have a better way of doing it. So be open to feedback, and then take that feedback, because oftentimes we're the ones that's just making an executive decision.
right.
But respect the problems that do arise. Nothing and no one is perfect. Be open to the feedback, respect that as well, and then trust yourself to make an executive decision. If it's not right, go back to the table and do it again. So I've flushed a lot of things out by talking it out, communicating properly, respecting the problem, and making sure even if it costs money to fix, put the proper people in place to make sure that that's taken care of.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes as business owners, we got to figure out some ways to do other things. And when in regards to like diversifying, you put out a book, and I would like for you to talk a little bit about it, because I think it's something that people, whenever they think about it, they think it's complicated, and they say, I'm going to stay away from that. So if you could talk about your book a little bit and how can it help on readers as well.
So, when my son was in fifth grade, he got accepted to the International Finance Academy, which was an annex of his original school. So we were all excited. We are like, "Oh, it's Finance Academy." We had no idea what it was, or what was going on. So he had come home probably after the first week, and he's like, "Mom, I got a stock portfolio that I need to grow." So it was a paper portfolio. They had given him in this finance class a budget in the stock market of 400,000 fake dollars. And his goal for the school year was to grow it. So he asked me for help. And that's when I realized I had no knowledge of money markets and the financial institution aspect. Of course, we all have our retirement and things like that. But in terms of how it moves and the intricacies of it, I had no knowledge of it. And I'm an autodidact. If you haven't noticed, I pretty much like to teach myself anything. I believe that our minds are limitless. And so I went down this rabbit hole to try and help him grow this portfolio, because he wasn't going to be the only one who don't know how to grow his portfolio. A lot of
Mhm.
his classmates, their fathers were in finance. So it was, a no-brainer for them. For us, it was like, let's figure this out.
Right.
We grew his portfolio by $200,000,
Wow.
okay, in that year. And so I had opened up a paper trade account and had grown mine. And so he and I, we were celebrating that at the end of the year. And I sat there and I'm like, well, what if I did that with real money? What am I celebrating? I need a check from this. This was fun, but now that we know how to do it, let's go for it. And so that's what I started to do. I went to, again, I always invest in self development and education, if it's for my business or even for my personal life. And started going to conferences and just dialing down. I found a strategy that worked for me and worked for us. And we just kept rinsing and repeating. And then there was some veterans who who were part of the VFW down in South Florida, and my mom were friends with them, and they had reached an age where their pension gets paid out, and they didn't know what to do with it. And my mom's like, "Well, my grandson and my daughter plays with stuff like that. Talk to her." So I pulled one on a Zoom with me and was trying to show him how to set up his portfolio for like a residual income where he doesn't have to touch it and it just will, build and make money. And he invited all of his friends to the next call. And then they invited all their kids and their grandkids to the next call. And because they were much older and not as technically savvy, I had to develop a curriculum to teach them that was digestible.
Mhm.
And so we started, if the older people can understand, then the kids can understand. So then we started sessions, and it was just something to do for the community. And then I was approached by a nonprofit to create courses, which I did. And then I just created my own course, and that's what you see there. It's a course as well as an ebook that kind of walks you through setting it up to where you have a monthly cash flow from assets that you already own, and you don't really have to do anything
Wow.
you don't have to do any day trading or anything like that to um, get that residual income.
I think this was brilliant and a phenomenal idea what you guys put together, man. Wow. Truly, truly commendable.
It was fun.
Another thing that is commendable, you recently received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. Can you tell us a little bit about what does one have to do to get this? And can you talk a little bit about just what does it feel like to receive this type of award? Because I want to just tell you right here, congratulations again. But
Thank you.
just to see and know that I know someone that received this award is truly, truly an honor.
Thank you for that. It was kind of a surprise, but the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for volunteer services was started in 2003, I believe,
Mhm,
but it's to acknowledge the lifetime work of those who volunteer for our country and our communities.
mhm.
And you have to do at least 4,000 hours of volunteer work. And it's, a documented thing or whatever, but you get your certificate, sign a letter from the White House, and when you do things, you don't really expect anything in return. And I know everyone knows someone in their community who relentlessly is taking care of others or looking out for others or start a neighborhood watch or a food drive or leaving books out for kids. And we all have these little angels in our neighborhood and no one really acknowledges them. So last year, I met a woman and I was telling her a little bit about myself. And she went on and researched me and nominated me. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, thanks. Not really understanding what it was. And by the time the ceremony came in Washington, D.C., there were so many incredible people there. I had to really respect and understand the honor of receiving it. Since then, I have become a certifying agency, a certifying organization, because after I was nominated, I was like, "Ooh, I have to nominate these phenomenal people." And so I've nominated some incredible, incredible people for the community, and we're actually having an award ceremony in Miami shortly for them as well. And I will continue to nominate people. I started my philanthropic efforts when I was younger. I would do a toy drive with the foster care agencies down in Miami. And then it transitioned to helping kids that were aging out of foster care. We
Mhm.
would get like bed and bags and towels and sheets and microwaves sometimes because these children would be displaced. And then I became a part of Florida Foster Care Review, which is a volunteer service for court advocates to go and look at these cases in the family courts and try and help find what the kids need or just have eyes on these kids and make sure they're going to their doctors and they're getting their eye exams and maybe they need an IEP or something like that. So um, then I started putting bags together for the children that are aging out of foster care so that they can have a year's worth of hygiene products. And that, where I would do little parties and or just save money throughout the year and put them together and try and deliver them as much as I can. And now I am having fundraisers because now I realize it's okay to ask for help. And there's people very willing to help and accommodate. And thank you so much for coming to the one last year. We were able to give out 368 bags and we're planning to do even more this year. So just paying it forward, appreciating what I've received thus far, and hoping to bring more people in to pay it forward as well. So it was a great gift. It's put on by the White House and Points of Light and AmeriCorps, Points of Light and AmeriCorps. So
Wow, Jennifer, I didn't know that all of that went into it, and that is well deserved. And I'm not sure if you've thought about it, but do you realize the impact that you've made?
I think I don't think any of us can conceive the impact that we've made on people's lives because everyone has a different perspective. But
Mhm.
I do believe that everyone's life has a purpose. And whether we're actively doing projects like this, or if we're just saying a kind word to someone or complimenting their I think we all put out good things every day with or without intentionality. But when you are intentional, it's a ripple effect. So wouldn't be able to conceive who I've helped, but it feels good helping people.
Wow.
It definitely does.
Wow. As we get ready to wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about what are some things that you got going on this year and that you plan on rolling out?
So we're going to roll out more courses for the stocks education because I think the community needs to be a little more well versed in that.
Mhm.
It's our retirement and our future is very important. But we're also rolling out, we're participating in several fundraisers between the Washington, D.C. area and the South Florida area. So we have golf tournaments that'll be happening throughout the year. We have some women appreciation events that are happening throughout the year as well. And I have another round of nominees for the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. So those are on my calendar this year to roll out for my philanthropic side. For business, we are relaunching the brand in the Northeast area as well. So we're opening an office in the Northeast and we're taking on newer clients and a broader range of products. So that's 2024. I'm very excited about it. It makes it so much easier to get up in the morning when you know what the end looks like. So I'm very excited every day working towards those goals.
Wow, I love it. So you're a woman that came from Miami, and you just listed off the things that you got coming out. To see where you come from, to see where you're at now, it's truly an honor to sit here and have this conversation with you.
Thank you for
From your
having me.
from your story, thank you. From your story, what are some advice that our listeners that are listening right now can take away from your story?
Um, Everything that we go through we made it through.
Hmm.
Everything we've been through, we've made it through. If we're here today listening to it in the most simplistic form, we survived it. If we take our time when we're going through something to understand this may not be my fault why this is happening, but I'm going to make sure I take care of myself in the future. That's how I make it through my life and continue to move forward after anything. Um, I cope inside of my mind. My coping is not something that's done outside of us. It's not done with materialistic things. Coping is creating a place in our mind that's a safe space where we can go evaluate some things and not judge ourselves, but be try to constantly improve. So when you're going through something, understand that your mind can is limitless, and it can be a space where you create your safe space, but also the space where you plan to make it out of whatever you're going through. Um, we're not we're not where we come from, you know.
Mm.
We are whoever we become, and every day we're evolving. So I don't think there's anything anybody can't do. Just because I can't do it doesn't mean it can't be done. And I just wish and hope that everyone understands just how powerful a positive mindset can be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If anybody wanted to work with you and do business with you, if they wanted to get you on their podcast, how can they find you?
They can find me at theenrichment.com. That is www.THENRICHMINT.com. So the enrichment, like a minted coin, or at the enrichment on Instagram. Feel free, shoot us a DM or an email and we'll connect.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, it's been a pleasure to have you here as a guest on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, until next time, guys, God bless. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.